Tune into a podcast made by the fans for the fans. This is the Drive for Five podcast. By the fans, for the fans. The Drive for Five podcast.
Hey guys, welcome to episode 4 of the Drive for Five podcast. My name is David and I'm here with Scott, Harris, and Jared. We've taken a brief hiatus with the off season. We are all starting to apply for college, school's coming back, but we wanted to fit some time in to get an episode in before the start of the season. It is Thursday, October 5th. The season starts for the Islanders tomorrow on the 6th, and it's a very exciting time. I know we've all got our tickets for I got tickets for Monday. Harris has tickets for Saturday. Very exciting. So we just wanted to share our excitement and, just talk about the upcoming season. So let's start it off with just talking about the podcast very briefly. We've got some big plans coming up. We've already interviewed Alan Hahn. We are trying to acquire press passes for the upcoming season. It's a very tough task, but we may get it, we may not, but that would be very great. We're planning on interviewing Arthur Staple coming up and Connor Jones, so that will be very fun. And our website, drive5.blog, is rocking right now. It's really cool, and we've got our Instagram account, everything going really strong right now. So really excited about that, and I just wanted to get that out there before we start. So the preseason happened. The Islanders went 6-0-2, if I remember correctly. I was at the Islanders-Flyers game in Allentown, and that was a great game. And I want to go to you, Harris. The Islanders had an amazing preseason, but the Colorado Avalanche also had an amazing preseason last year. They were the best team in the preseason, and we all know how that season went. What I want to ask you is, how does the preseason, translate to the regular season, and what do you expect of the Islanders this coming season?
David, the only way the preseason can translate into the regular season is if you play your starters in all or most of the games, and that's what the Islanders pretty much did. They had John Tavares only played like 2 or 3 games, but they had Jordan Eberle out there for a lot, Andrew Ladd out there for a lot. They had their main core of the team out there for a lot of games, and 6-0-2 is not a bad way to go in it. Obviously, yeah, as you said, the Colorado Avalanche were last in the league last season after winning the preseason, but I don't recall them ever playing anyone good because of the World Cup. But this year, where the Islanders feel a sense of unity with their group, they really need to get everyone together, especially with these new faces and new veterans here. And the preseason 6-0-2 was a great job, and it could result in a very good season with all those players who start most of the time playing in those games.
Yeah, very exciting times. Preseason was great. It was really fun to watch. Jordan Eberle, Anders Lee, and John Tavares really meshed. That's the new line. The defense looked really nice. Ryan Pulock and Scott Mayfield, as I want to talk about later in the show, didn't look that strong. Thumbs down I'm getting from the people in the video, but that I'm watching right now. But it was just it was a good preseason all around, besides a few negatives. And I really do hope that we can translate it to the regular season. I think everyone meshed well, and Matt Barzal and Josh Ho-Sang, as I want to come to Jared right now. Matt Barzal and Josh Ho-Sang were unbelievable. And how do you think they're going to do this upcoming season?
I think that both of them are going to do great. We've seen a lot from Josh Ho-Sang at the end of last season, but the player to be determined of what we see is Matt Barzal, and I think that he's going to show up great. But I actually had a conversation with a teacher the other day who brought up a good point. Matt Barzal played in the juniors, and he actually never played against pros. We're going to compare him to someone like Austin Matthews, who played in the Swiss League and played against pros. Yes, no one's ever proven until they've played in the NHL, but Matt Barzal is going to be a second or third line center, and he's going to be needed in key situations, which he's never had against pros. I see him doing well. Others might not see that, but at the end of the day, I think that he's going to have a great season, and he's going to prove everyone to show that he is just an incredible player, and he's going to be a great future in the Islanders organization.
Yeah, you ran that by me, I guess a week ago, saying that Matt Barzal should be in the minors. I like the idea. I think I think he's a little small. He's a fast guy. I just don't want to see him get injured or something happen. He looked kind of lost last year when he went right into the NHL. But I do think that we need help at center. Brock Nelson is not the answer. I mean, you can get 20 goals out of him every year, sure, but that 20 goals doesn't translate to, wins. It's nice, but we need a dynamic second line center to line up with some of these wingers that we have. And I think Matt Barzal's that guy. If it's not going to be Matt Duchene, then I don't know what it's going to be. In my opinion, moving on, the biggest storyline of the offseason, of the preseason, as I mentioned, was Ryan Pulock, and we'll talk about Scott Mayfield, but he's not as important. But Ryan Pulock, and Scott, I want to come to you on this. Ryan Pulock was terrible. He really was. And there was even talk of Devin Taves replacing him. And when you hear that, that's kind of scary. So I just want to come to you and ask, Ryan Pulock, how do you feel he's going to, turn over from a pretty bad preseason and really, play this season?
I'm going to say right now, all the talk of Taves replacing Pulock was all a conspiracy theory. Pulock would need to go through waivers, so would Pelech and Mayfield and Hickey. So it wasn't worth trying to risking the loss of one of them instead of sending Taves down. That's just my opinion, and that's what I've heard from other people. Now, talking about Pulock, I feel like what happened during the preseason, I feel like in his case, he was getting readjusted. He played one period in the NHL last year before breaking his foot. And then he played, I think it was 16 games in the AHL last year. He did not play a lot last year. So he's coming back from a major foot injury that kept him out 75% of the year last year. I feel like playing him with a guy like Adam Pelech would maybe be the best for him. But at the same time, I feel like Pelech is going to play with DeHaan. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, the defense is definitely a storyline for this season. Travis Hamonic was terrible last season, and the Islanders didn't play well when he was in the lineup. We got a first and 2 seconds for him, which is very valuable. But there's just something around not having Hamonic that's scary. Even though he was terrible last year, even though the year before he wasn't great, just the feeling of not having Hamonic in the lineup is almost just, not reassuring. It's almost scary. But I think if Ryan Pulock can, go in and really replace him, I think that would be a big help. And I really do think that, Ryan Pulock, I think he's been out for a while. He broke his something, I don't know, in Arizona last year, and that really hurt him. He wasn't called up last year. I think he had a rough year, and he's just, getting back into things. So I hope this year he has a great year. So I want to move on to, we're just going to roll through some storylines for the upcoming season before we do our season predictions. I just want to talk about Doug Weight. Doug Weight just seems to present himself better than Jack Capuano. He seems like he's more confident. He's more, outgoing with the media. He kind of tells them more things, just like Anthony Beauvillier will be in the lineup for opening night, meaning that Jason Chimera or Nikolai Kulemin won't be. So there's something like that going around. Doug Weight really is a great guy. I think he's really commands the locker room well. He's brought in all new assistant coaches. And Harris, I just want to ask you, how do you think Doug Weight is really going to command the team this year? They were one of the best teams in the league when he was coach last year. So how do you think his success from last year will translate into a full season?
I think it'll translate very well into this season. And there's one thing that with Doug Weight that that didn't happen with Jack Capuano towards the end of his tenure, is that Jack Capuano completely lost the locker room right before his firing. He just couldn't get anyone to get on his side. With Doug Weight right in the middle of his tenure and now into this season, he has everyone's respect in that room. Everyone in that room respects what he's done in his career. He's won a Stanley Cup. He's had 1,000 points. And they know what kind of hockey knowledge this guy has. And he brings in all these assistant coaches who are just doing absolutely amazing. Scott Gomez and Josh Hosang, from what I've heard, are absolutely hitting it off at practice. He's a great power play guy. He had a great career doing that. But going back to Doug Weight, which is the main focus, I mean, it's just so much respect for him in that locker room. You can't help but not listen to the guy when he's in the room. He's got a great hockey mind, and I think it'll translate well this season.
Doug Waite is really an X factor for this year. I really think that, the team will live or die with him. If they don't, if the power play is not great, if they don't really, when he tells them stuff to do, if he has these lineups that he wants to use, these, schemes that he wants to use, if they're ruining things by giving up leads late, I mean, it's really going to be tough. So Doug Waite needs to really, command the troops and just be a great coach, just like he was a great player. And I'm really hoping that'll happen. So that's Doug Waite. We've talked about the lineup. I just want to talk about quickly, we've got a new forward unit this year. Jordan Eberle is just, everyone hates talking about him because it's getting old by now, but we need to talk about him. And Scott, I want to come to you. We traded Jordan Eberle for Ryan Strome, and it's just, it's mind-boggling that happened. But how do you think Jordan Eberle is going to improve the team this season?
I'm just going to say one thing. Both Ryan Strome and Travis Hamonic looked terrible last night. So that's one point. And Hamonic and TJ Brody were on for all three of Connor McDavid's goals. So that's another thing. So Jordan Eberle, I feel like having him with Tavares and the past chemistry they've had, I understand people are like, oh, they haven't played together since 2010 or whatever it is in the World Juniors. If you've played with a guy before, the chemistry hopefully will continue. I feel like Eberle didn't have the best preseason. Nobody had a great preseason except for Matt Barzal, and Anthony Beauvillier. But I just feel like with them coming into the season and with them getting it started right away versus the Blue Jackets tomorrow night, I just feel like it's just going to kick off. The chemistry will kick off with Anders Lee and on the first power play, and I feel like they'll play very well together.
Look, Scott, I expect Eberle to put up big numbers, but I have to disagree with your chemistry comment. Coming from a hockey player, I went from playing with someone, we didn't play together for 3 years, and that first time we played together, we had great chemistry. 3 years later, we had no chemistry. So I disagree, and I know it's youth hockey, so it's not the same, but it's a lot different in the pros. Think about all the players John Tavares has been with since he's been with Jordan Eberle, and then go to the people that he was with in between, and now you're going back. It's a lot harder to remember that chemistry and remember everything that was put well together. I see where you're coming from, but I respectfully disagree with that.
Yeah, that's a great comment, Jared. I was thinking kind of the same thing, just because this is overreacting. But, Jordan Eberle didn't invite John Tavares to his wedding. They can't be that good of friends. I know that's not a big deal, but it's just Jordan Eberle and John Tavares. I expect a big year out of Jordan Eberle. I really do. But the argument that I don't like, and I want to move on to this next, I'm going to come to Harris, is that Jordan Eberle is going to somehow keep John Tavares on the Islanders. It is entering a very scary time. I've been reading a lot of, Islanders literature, Eyes on Isles, Newsday, and it's really, really scary that we are entering the start of the season and John Tavares is not locked up long term. It really is just unbelievable that I was reading a TSN article, right? And they went through the storylines, the names to keep an eye on throughout the season. And when I saw, the number one name being John Tavares, it was just kind of scary because you have Connor McDavid, you have all these names, but then you have John Tavares, one of the biggest players in the NHL, a star, and, he could be on a different team. He could be the best player in free agency ever in hockey for the last 30 years. This isn't basketball where you have LeBron James, all these players going to free agency. This is John Tavares, a top 5 player in the NHL, going to free agency. And if that happens, I can't see the Islanders retaining him. So, Harris, I want to come to you. How do you feel the John Tavares storyline could affect the season?
Well, I'm going to play it out as the same thing as Steven Stamkos. Like, he's going to wait and see what happens during the season and what he gets up until the free agency happens. In another way, you can say it like this. All this arena stuff is most likely the reason why John Tavares is not re-signed yet. So my stress level of him re-signing went from a 10 to about a 3 in the fact that they're going to move back to Belmont. They're going to they're going to move to Belmont. They're going to move somewhere. They're going to move wherever on Long Island. But that is the main reason why John Tavares is not signed yet. So it's January It's January 30th, I believe. That's the day when they can opt out. And with all the reports going out, how can they not? So up until then, I believe this is going to be a distraction because everyone's got to worry about how John Tavares has not re-signed. But I don't think it's going to make a huge impact on the team just because January 30th is going to be a deciding factor of why. So if he doesn't sign after they opt out of that Barclays deal, and if they do stay in that Barclays deal, I'd be very distracted in the fact that John Tavares has not signed a new contract yet, especially with Jack Eichel now getting a new contract for $8 and $80. So I would be very stressed going into the latter months of the season.
Yeah, it can't be a distraction that affects play on the ice. And that's tough because honestly, I think the arena situation did distract them. You look at the Barclays Center arena, their play kind of dipped when that stuff came out. I don't like how these players have to deal with these really difficult choices with their life that they could be moving. They could be playing in a different arena. These are big decisions for them. And they're human beings. When they're thinking about this stuff in their head, it's not a good thing. It just mentally, psychology, I don't like it. So I really do hope that John Tavares, we're going to be doing this podcast every other week for the next year. That's going to be talked about a lot. John Tavares is the storyline of the season. TSN said that he's the number one storyline for the entire NHL. So it's really hard to just not look at that and not be distracted. So, I hope it doesn't affect the play on the ice, but I could see it happening. One storyline that, could affect things in the locker room, and it did last year, was the goalie situation. And last year, Yaroslav Halak was sent down to Bridgeport, cited that he was not getting along with players in the locker room, cited that, he wasn't playing well on the ice. That Minnesota game, we all remember that debacle. And this year we have basically a goalie tandem going into the season. Harris, I want to come to you. How do you feel about that?
Let's just say I am a pro Yara Halak guy. And I know he had a great preseason last year in the World Cup. Did not translate well to start the regular season. But this guy thrives in the big games. You look at what he's done in his career, especially last year. Coming up, he won those last 6 games. He was part of those big 6 games for the Islanders in their last 6, and he won 5 of them. You go back and look at 2010 Montreal. They're down 3-1 in the series. Halak single-handedly carried that team into not only winning that series against Washington, but into an Eastern Conference final in 2010. And now you look at the present. I mean, look, Greiss signed this extension. Good for him, but Halak gets paid more than Greiss. He's $4.5 million, and he's not going to get paid $4.5 million to be a single-handed backup to Greiss. I agree with Scott. He's going to start more games than Greiss. He thrives in the big time, and we've seen it. Greiss starts running out of gas when it comes to about March, and Halak is going to have to step up. So give Halak some time. He will play very well this season, and I am pro Yarrow.
I am in the minority. I am definitely pro Greiss. I've been pro Greiss for years. Yaroslav Halak was terrible last year. Everyone seems to forget that. He won 6 games at the end of the year, but who cares? I mean, Thomas Greiss carried the team, and I am in the minority as I'm finding out. Really, everyone loves Yaroslav Halak. I don't know if it's that year we played the Capitals in the playoffs, but everyone loves Yaroslav Halak. I know you 3 do, and I definitely want to see Thomas Greiss the starter. I'd love to see him play 50 and Halak 30, but I don't think that's what's going to happen. I think Wade's going to ride the tandem here. I think Halak is going to be given the opportunity to run away with it more than Greiss will be. But I don't know. I really do want to see Greiss. I mean, we paid him. We just paid him a big deal. Why not do that? I mean, we're paying him $4 million a year basically. So I want to see what he can do. And I just want to move on now to our NHL predictions side of this podcast. Jared, I'm going to come to you. Name just one team that you think. We're going to name one team, and then we're going to give our predictions for the season. Jared, how do you feel about, one team that's really going to surprise this season and, turn some heads?
Vegas Golden Knights, and I'll tell you why. I don't think that they're going to be bottom 5, but they will be bottom 15. Not 14 now. Sorry, I was thinking 14. But they will be bottom 15, but I don't think they'll be bottom 5. I think they're going to be a surprising team to watch this year. I don't think they'll make the playoffs, but I think they're going to make people's heads turn and realize that this is the best expansion team I think the NHL has really ever seen in terms of an expansion team. They won't be making the playoffs, as I have said before, but I do think that they'll finish in like the top 22-ish in the league. So I'm feeling that they'll fall between the 19th and 22nd position in the standings at the end of the year. And that's really how I think that they're going to pan out this year. I think they're going to surprise a lot of people. Harris, how do you feel?
Yeah, I feel like, the most improved – I'm going to go with the most improved team that I believe in the NHL right now, and that is the Carolina Hurricanes, in my opinion. I feel like it's kind of like Columbus. They can make noise, and I just like how they keep improving. They did the same thing last year, and now they bring in Scott Darling to be their number one goaltender. They they have a great forward makeup. They did a weird thing today by making Jordan Stoll and Justin Falk co-captains, which is just absolutely beyond me. But I think it's very creative and interesting. But they have a great group and a lot of veterans and a lot of young guys. Teuvo Teravainen, I think, is a rising star in the league. And they added some defense. They have Justin Falk. Jacob Slavin got locked up to a new contract. And TVR from the Blackhawks just came in. So I like Carolina. There's some new experience in Carolina, a lot of young guys mixed with a lot of veterans, and a good goaltender. And Carolina, that's a team to watch out for this year. Scott, what do you think?
You suck. You took my pick.
I knew I did.
Well, first off, before I name my team, the Rangers are losing to the Colorado Avalanche. You want to know who scored the goal? Matt Duchene. So now that you took my pick, now I need to.
I'll go when you're picking someone. You can take some time. I've got someone.
Yeah, I need to think.
I'm going LA Kings. I think they're going to be a dreadful hockey team this year. They have some high expectations to be a top 3 team in the Pacific. They think they're going to be a playoff team. Jonathan Quick's coming off an injury. I don't think he's that amazing of a goalie besides clutch moments either way. Drew Doughty can't carry that team as much as he has. They've lost one of their best defenders to Vegas. Their forward unit's terrible. Adding Mike Camilleri isn't going to do crap. So I really do think that, you could see Vegas finishing ahead of LA in the standings. And, if you told me that after LA won the cup, I'd be very surprised. But I don't like their contract makeup. I don't like their team makeup. One injury and that team's done. And if I had to pick a team to watch this season, I'd say watch out for the LA Kings picking the top 5 of the 2018 NHL draft. So, Scott, I'm going to come to you now. Hopefully you have a team.
I'm going to go with one of my picks that's going to be one of the better teams this year. I mean, they're a very good regular season team, but they never produce in the playoffs, and that's the Dallas Stars. I mean, they are very much improved. Alexander Radulov is now their first-line right winger with Jamie Benn and Tyler Seguin. It is now one of the most goal-desperate first lines in the NHL. You've got Ben Bishop in net. Hey, no Kari Lehtinen, Antti Niemi 41-41 split anymore. You got Mark Mathot on the back end. That defense looks really good with a lot of young guys. Julius Honka's back there. Jamie Alexiak. John Klingberg is still pretty young, too. And then you've got some young guys up front. Like you've got some bottom 6 guys like Jamel Smith and Remy Ely and a couple other guys that I feel like will make a nice little impact on it.
That is definitely a good pick. I respect it. I think we all have some good picks going around, and I'd like to end this episode as I promised. It is the day before the start of the regular season. It's a big day. We have some exciting content coming to you tomorrow. But right now, I just want to get some opinions going out. I want to hear who the Islanders' MVP of the season will be. I want to hear where the Islanders will finish, how many points, where they finish, they make the playoffs, how far they go, and does John Tavares re-sign? So, Jared, I'm going to come to you first.
Well, I'm just going to talk about the Tavares re-signing first. As the episode went along, I heard from all of you about stuff about Tavares. And you're all a little scared. And I actually tend to say that I'm not scared. And here's why. I think that by the end of the season, he's going to re-sign. And he's just waiting on to figure out what's going to happen with the future of the Islanders. Where are they going? But that's really what's going to happen with him. He'll eventually re-sign. I have no worry in that whatsoever. Next, I think the Islanders finish in the second wild card. I think they fall just under 100 points, maybe 98, 99 points this year.
And your MVP?
I'd have to go with probably Anders Lee. I think he'll have another amazing season and be the MVP of the Islanders this year.
Okay, that sounds good. How about you, Harris?
I agree with Jared in the placement. I believe second wild card spot. The Metro's very challenging division, and I think the Islanders are going to crack into the playoffs. I believe that. I'm going to go with the first round exit this year. I can't see them winning a round in the playoffs. It's just not likely to me. But I do like what the Islanders are doing with, they bring Jordan Eberle in. Andrew Ladd, who was supposed to be their second best player last year at the start of the season, now kind of falls back to where he should be. And he's kind of like a third, fourth, or fifth kind of guy with Anders Lee in there, Jordan Eberle too. And I think my MVP for the season, how can it not be John Tavares? He's obviously the best player on the team and one of the top players in the league. But, I also have some guys who are going to bounce back this season. Andrew Ladd, I can easily see scoring anywhere from 23 to 28 goals, somewhere in that range. That's just my opinion. I don't know about anyone else. I know, David, you're not a big Ladd fan. I really can't see Eberle putting up any more than 55 points, in my opinion. I just don't think that chemistry – they looked good during the preseason, but it wasn't really that good until the end, and Tavares only played like 2 games. So you kind of got to – it's kind of a wait-and-see thing with Jordan Eberle. Anders Lee, I think, will get to 30 goals again, and he will be very good. And then Josh Bailey's kind of going to drop off because he's not playing with Tavares. So those are my predictions for some of the players and where the Islanders will do this season.
All right, Scott, and then we'll come to me. Who's your MVP? Where do the Islanders finish? And does John Tavares resign?
They finish in the first wild card, 2 points ahead of the Carolina Hurricanes, who will have the second wild card. They will lose in the first round to the Tampa Bay Lightning. They will be placed in the Atlantic Division bracket. Tavares will resign by the end of the year because the Belmont situation will clear up. And my team MVP this year is going to be Nick Leddy.
Yep. Basically, Nick Leddy's my MVP. He is so important. Without John Tavares, we're pretty screwed. But without Nick Leddy, we're equally as screwed. Nick Leddy's our top defender, really important player. He's my MVP. He's going to have a big year. My prediction, Islanders are going to finish with 90 points this year. That's a pretty crappy prediction. That's predicting them pretty far out of the playoffs, but I always like to take the under. I predicted the Islanders wouldn't make the playoffs last year, and they didn't, which was very unfortunate, but I still consider it a successful year. This year, I'm hoping to do a little bit reverse jinx here. I'm predicting them to, everyone's predicting them to not make the playoffs except Islanders fans, so why not predict them to not make the playoffs? Hopefully with the midseason trade, something happens. But, right now I can't see this team being ahead of a Montreal, maybe a Carolina. But I don't know. Right now I don't see the Islanders making the playoffs. And I say John Tavares resigns. I hope. If he doesn't, we'd be screwed. But with that, guys, please follow our Instagram, Drive for 5. Check out our website, drive5.blog, our Twitter, @drive45_. And we're going to keep up this podcast. We have Arthur Staple and Connor Jones coming up. It's going to be very exciting. So with that, guys, go Islanders, and thank you so much for listening.
Thank you for listening to the Drive for 5 podcast. And as always, let's go Islanders!